I have been sitting in this courtroom for over 2 decades. I have seen con artists, deadbeat parents, lying ex-husbands, and people who think a sob story will get them out of paying what they owe. But every once in a while, and I mean a rare, ugly, while someone walks through those doors who makes my blood run cold. This was one of those days. His name is Marcus. Marcus stands 6 feet 2 inches tall. He walks into my courtroom wearing a tailored navy suit, Italian leather shoes, and a watch that costs more than most people's cars. His hair is perfectly combed back. His jaw is sharp. He looks like he just walked off a magazine cover, and I hated him within 30 seconds. Why? Because of the way he walked past his mother, his 95-year-old mother, a woman so frail she had to be helped into the courtroom by a nurse, a woman who weighed maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, a woman whose left arm was still in a sling 6 months after the incident. Her name is Eleanor, and Eleanor is Marcus's mother. Now let me tell you how this case landed on my docket. Eleanor filed a civil lawsuit against her own son. She wasn't asking for millions. She wasn't asking for revenge. She was asking for exactly $47,000, the cost of her medical bills, physical therapy, and 6 months of in-home nursing care. $47,000. That's what it cost to fix what her son broke. I looked at Marcus and said, "Mr. Marcus, do you understand why we're here today?" And he smiled. He actually smiled, like this was some kind of joke, like he was about to charm me the way he probably charms everyone else in his life. "Of course, Your Honor," he said. His voice was smooth, rehearsed. "But I think there's been a misunderstanding. I love my mother. I would never." I cut him off. I always cut them off when they start with the "I love" nonsense. Save it. I don't care what you love. I care about what happened on January 12th. Can you tell me what happened on January 12th? For the first time, his smile flickered. Here's what I already knew before he opened his mouth. The police report said Marcus and his mother had an argument about money. Eleanor had been paying Marcus's rent for 3 years because he kept telling her he was between opportunities. But a week before January 12th, Eleanor found out Marcus had bought a brand new Mercedes, cash, 32 years old, living in a penthouse his mother paid for, driving a car his mother paid for. And when she confronted him, when that tiny 95-year-old woman told her grown son she was cutting him off, he slapped her. He slapped his own mother, a woman who changed his diapers, a woman who worked double shifts to put him through private school, a woman who gave him everything, and he thanked her by knocking her to the ground. She fell against the edge of her coffee table, broke her wrist, cracked 2 ribs, and then Marcus walked out. He got in that Mercedes and drove away, and he didn't come back for 6 months. 6 months. His mother lay in a hospital bed for 3 weeks, then a rehab facility for 2 more. Then she needed a nurse to help her bathe, to help her dress, to help her walk to the bathroom, and Marcus was nowhere. But that's not why I'm telling you this story. That's not the part that made even my bailiff, a man who has seen everything, drop his jaw. Because when Marcus finally came back, when he finally walked into my courtroom with his expensive suit and his rehearsed lies, he didn't apologize. He threatened me. That's right. He stood in front of me, pointed his finger at my bench, and said, "In front of God and everyone, you're going to regret this." And then he said something else, something I will never forget. But before I tell you what happened next, before the video played, before the courtroom went silent, before Marcus's face turned white as paper, let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand exactly what kind of man we're dealing with, and trust me, you won't believe what he did next. Let me set the scene for you. My courtroom is not like other courtrooms. There's no jury box because I don't need 12 people to tell me the truth. I can smell a lie from across the room, and Marcus smelled like a perfume counter at a department store, expensive, shiny, and completely fake. After I cut off his first attempt at a charming speech, he tried a different angle. He leaned back, crossed his legs, and put on this hurt expression like I had personally offended his ancestors. "Your Honor," he said, "I think my mother is confused. She's 95 years old. Her memory isn't what it used to be." I looked at Eleanor. She was sitting in the plaintiff's chair, her good hand resting on her daughter's arm. Her daughter Marcus's sister is named Patricia. Patricia is 48 years old, wears no makeup, works as a high school teacher, and looks like she hasn't slept in 6 months, because she hasn't. She's been taking care of their mother while Marcus was driving around in his Mercedes. I said, "Mrs. Eleanor, are you confused?" Eleanor looked up at me. Her eyes were clear, sharp, tired, yes, but confused. "Absolutely not. No, Your Honor, she said. Her voice was soft but steady. I remember every single thing that happened. I remember him raising his hand. I remember the sound it made when he hit me. I remember lying on the floor and watching him walk out the door. Marcus let out a loud sigh, a theatrical sigh, like he was the one being wronged here. That's not what happened, he said. I turned to him. Then you tell me, what happened? And here we go. This is the part where every liar in my courtroom thinks they're the first person to ever come up with a creative excuse. Marcus took a deep breath and said, I am not making this up. She tripped. She tripped over her own feet. I tried to catch her, but she fell. I didn't hit her. I would never hit my mother. I stared at him. She tripped. Yes, and her broken wrist. She put her hand out to catch herself and her two cracked ribs. She landed on the coffee table and the bruise on her cheek, the one the paramedics photographed, the one shaped exactly like an open hand. Marcus's jaw tightened just for a second. Then the smile came back. She fell face first. The bruise was from the table. I looked at the bailiff. The bailiff looked at me. We've done this dance 1,000 times. I said, Mr. Marcus, are you aware that your mother's neighbor heard the entire thing? He blinked. What neighbor? Mrs. Gladys, 82 years old, lives in the apartment next door. She heard shouting, then she heard a slap, then she heard a body hit the floor, and then she looked through her peephole and saw you walking down the hallway. She wrote a statement. Would you like to read it? For the first time, Marcus's confidence cracked just a little, a tiny hairline fracture in his armor. I didn't know about any neighbor, he said. Of course you didn't, because you didn't stick around to check on your mother. You walked out, you got in your car, and you drove away. And when the police called you 6 hours later, you didn't answer. And when they called you the next day, you didn't answer. And when they finally tracked you down 3 weeks later at your penthouse, the one your mother was paying for, you said, and I quote, this is a family matter. Stay out of it. Marcus opened his mouth to respond. But here's the thing about my courtroom. I don't let people interrupt me. I interrupt them. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. You disappeared for 6 months. 6 months, Mr. Marcus. You changed your phone number. You moved out of the penthouse and into a new apartment. You told your own sister Patricia, who is sitting right there, that if she tried to find you, you would get a restraining order against your own sister. Patricia was crying now, quietly, the kind of crying that happens when you've been holding everything in for too long. Marcus wouldn't look at her. He wouldn't look at his mother. He stared straight ahead at the wall behind me, and that's when I decided. I said, Mr. Marcus, I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you or did you not strike your mother? He didn't answer. I said, Bailiff, play the video. Marcus's head snapped toward me. What video? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile, the one you didn't know existed. The thing about technology is that liars never seem to understand it. They think if they delete something from their phone, it's gone forever. They think if they don't see a camera, no camera exists. But in 2024, cameras are everywhere. Doorbell cameras, security cameras, traffic cameras, and in Eleanor's case, a small, inexpensive nanny camera her daughter Patricia had installed 6 months before the incident. Patricia didn't install it because she suspected her brother would hit their mother. She installed it because Marcus had a habit of borrowing money from Eleanor's purse when he thought no one was looking. Small amounts at first, $20 here, $50 there. But Patricia noticed, and Patricia wanted proof. What Patricia got was so much worse. I looked at Marcus. His face had gone pale, not the kind of pale you get from being nervous, the kind of pale you get when you realize you've been caught red-handed. Your Honor, he said, his voice higher now, I don't think it's legal too. It's legal. I cut him off. The camera was in a common area, the living room, no expectation of privacy, and your mother knew about it. Isn't that right, Mrs. Eleanor? Eleanor nodded. Patricia told me about it. I said it was fine. I didn't think Marcus would ever. Her voice broke. She didn't finish the sentence. The bailiff pressed play. Now, I'm not going to describe every second of that video to you. Some things are too ugly to put into words, but I will tell you what I saw. I saw Marcus walk into his mother's apartment at 2:47 p.m. on January 12th. I saw him holding a piece of paper, a bank statement. I saw him wave it in her face. I couldn't hear the audio because the camera didn't record sound, but I could read his lips. He was yelling. His face was red. His veins were popping out of his neck. I saw Eleanor try to stand up from her chair. I saw her raise her hand, probably to tell him to calm down. and I saw Marcus, this 6'2", 200-pound man, draw back his hand and slap his 95-year-old mother across the face with so much force that she flipped over the arm of her chair and crashed onto the floor. The courtroom was silent. Even Marcus's lawyer, a young woman who looked like she regretted every life choice that brought her to this moment, covered her mouth with her hand. I looked at Marcus. He was staring at the screen. His face was gray. I said, "Mr. Marcus, look at me." He didn't move. I said it again, louder, "Look at me." He turned his head, slowly. His eyes were wide. For the first time he looked scared. I said, "That's your mother. That woman on the floor. That's the woman who gave birth to you. That's the woman who worked double shifts so you could have new shoes for school. That's the woman who paid your rent for 3 years while you told her you were trying to find yourself, and you hit her like she was a stranger on the street. Like she was nobody." Marcus swallowed. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to? You drew your hand back. You aimed. You swung. That's not an accident. That's a choice." He didn't have an answer. For the first time in what I'm guessing was his entire privileged life, Marcus had absolutely nothing to say. But here's the thing. Even after that video played, even after everyone in the courtroom saw exactly what kind of man he was, Marcus still wasn't done digging his own grave, because what he did next, what he said to me in front of his mother, his sister, my bailiff, and a court reporter, that's the part that made me want to climb over my own bench. I've been threatened before. It comes with the job. Angry defendants, deadbeat dads, scammers who thought they could outsmart me. They've called me every name in the book. They've told me I'm unfair, that I'm biased, that I don't understand their situation. I've heard it all, but no one, and I mean no one, had ever threatened me the way Marcus did. After the video stopped playing, I took a moment to let the silence settle. I looked at Eleanor. She was crying now, but quietly. Patricia had her arm around her mother's shoulders. The nurse was dabbing Eleanor's eyes with a tissue. I looked at Marcus. His lawyer was whispering in his ear, probably telling him to keep his mouth shut, probably telling him that the video had destroyed his case and the smartest thing he could do was apologize and accept whatever judgment I handed down. But Marcus wasn't smart. Marcus was arrogant, and arrogant people always think they can talk their way out of anything. He stood up. His lawyer grabbed his arm, tried to pull him back down. He shook her off. "Your Honor," he said. His voice was shaking, not with fear, with anger. "I've been patient. I've listened to you accuse me of something I didn't do. I've sat here while you played a video that doesn't show the whole story, but I'm done being quiet." I leaned back in my chair. "Mr. Marcus, sit down." "No," he pointed his finger at me. "You're going to listen to me for once." The bailiff took a step forward. I held up my hand to stop him. I wanted to hear this. I wanted to hear exactly how deep Marcus's delusion went. "Go ahead," I said. "Say what you came here to say." Marcus took a breath. His face was red. His fists were clenched at his sides. "This isn't over," he said. "You think you can humiliate me in front of all these people? You think you can take my mother's side because she's old and frail and you feel sorry for her? I have money. I have connections. And when this is over, when you rule against me because you've already made up your mind, I'm going to make sure everyone knows what really happened. I'm going to appeal. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to..." And then he said it. "You're going to regret this, Judge. You think you're untouchable? You're not. I know people, and I'm going to make sure your career ends in disgrace." The courtroom went absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop from across the street. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just looked at him for a long, long time. Then I said very quietly, "Mr. Marcus, do you know what I did before I became a judge?" He frowned. "What does that have to do with? I was a prosecutor. For 10 years. I put murderers in prison. I put gang members in prison. I put men who threatened witnesses and threatened judges and threatened their own mothers in prison. And do you know what happened to every single one of them?" He didn't answer. "They went to jail. Every last one of them." Marcus's lawyer finally managed to pull him back down into his chair. She was apologizing, stammering, trying to do damage control. But the damage was already done, and Marcus had done it to himself. I looked at my bailiff. "Make a note. Threatening a judge. Will be. Adding that to the record." Then I turned back to Marcus. "You think you can threaten me in my own courtroom? You think I'm afraid of your money or your connections or your people? Let me tell you something, Mr. Marcus. I've been doing this job for over 20 years. I've been threatened by better men than you, and every single one of them walked out of this courtroom with less than they came in with. Every single one." Marcus was sweating now. His expensive suit didn't look so impressive anymore. I continued, "You came here today to fight your mother over $47,000 medical bills for injuries you caused, and instead of apologizing, instead of showing even 1 ounce of remorse, you stood up and threatened the judge." I shook my head. "You have no idea how badly you just messed up." There comes a moment in every difficult case when the truth becomes too heavy to carry. For Eleanor, that moment came right after her son threatened me. I watched her face change. Until that point, she had been sitting quietly, dignified, holding herself together the way mothers do even when their children have broken their hearts. But something about Marcus threatening a judge, about watching her son dig himself deeper and deeper into his own lies, seemed to break something inside her. She started to shake. Patricia noticed first. Mom, are you okay?" Eleanor didn't answer. She just stared at Marcus. And then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it, she said, "Who are you?" Marcus looked at her. "What? Who are you?" Eleanor said again, louder this time, "I don't know you anymore. I don't know who you've become." The courtroom fell silent. Even Marcus's lawyer stopped scribbling notes. Eleanor turned to face me. "Your Honor, can I say something?" I nodded. "Of course, Mrs. Eleanor." She took a deep breath. Her hands were trembling, but her voice was steady. "I raised that boy by myself. His father left when Marcus was 2 years old. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to put food on the table. I went without new clothes for years so he could have new shoes. I paid for his college tuition out of my retirement savings because I believed in him. I believed he would become someone good." She paused, swallowed. "And now look at him. He's 32 years old. He's never held a job for more than 6 months. He's never paid his own rent. He's never taken care of anyone but himself. And when I finally said no, when I finally told him I couldn't give him any more money, he hit me. His own mother." Marcus opened his mouth to speak. I shot him a look that could freeze fire. He closed his mouth. Eleanor continued, "I'm not asking for revenge. I'm not asking for him to go to jail. I'm asking for $47,000 to pay my medical bills. That's all. I don't want anything else from him. I don't want his money. I don't want his apologies. I don't even want to see him again." She looked at Marcus one last time. "But I want him to know, I want everyone in this room to know that what he did was wrong, and no amount of expensive suits or fancy cars or lies will ever make it right." By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even my bailiff, who has the emotional range of a brick wall, was blinking rapidly. I looked at Marcus. He wasn't crying. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't doing anything except staring at the table in front of him with an expression I can only describe as sullen, like a child who'd been caught stealing cookies and was mad about getting caught, not about what he'd done. I said, "Mr. Marcus, your mother just spoke to you from her heart. Do you have anything to say to her?" He didn't look up. "Mr. Marcus, I asked you a question." Finally, he raised his head. His eyes were cold. "No," he said, "I have nothing to say, and that's when I made my decision. Not about the money that was always going to be straightforward. The video showed exactly what happened. The medical bills were documented. The police report was clear. But I had to decide something else, something Marcus didn't see coming, because threatening a judge in open court isn't just stupid. It's a crime, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I looked at my bailiff. "I'm going to take a 5-minute recess. When I come back, I'll deliver my verdict." As I stood up to leave the bench, I heard Marcus mutter something under his breath. I didn't catch all of it, but I caught enough. "You'll pay for this." I stopped, turned around, looked him straight in the eye. "Mr. Marcus, you just made the biggest mistake of your life." I held my gavel in my hand, but I didn't bring it down. Not yet, because I wanted Marcus to hear every single word I was about to say. "Mr. Marcus, I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. Your mother, Eleanor, is awarded the full amount of $47,000 plus court costs and attorney's fees. That money will be taken directly from your bank account, and if you don't have enough to cover it, I will authorize a wage garnishment order. Good luck explaining that to your employer." Marcus's lawyer was already packing her bag. She knew there was nothing left to do. "But that's not all," I continued. "Because of your behavior in this courtroom, the threats, the lies, the complete lack of remorse, I am also referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges. Assault on an elderly person, intimidation of a witness, that's your mother, and threatening a judicial officer." Marcus stood up. "You can't do that. I just did." This is outrageous." I'll appeal. I'll take this to a higher court. I'll sit down, Mr. Marcus. No. I won't sit down. And then it happened. The door to the courtroom opened. Two police officers walked in. They weren't there for Marcus. Not yet. But Marcus didn't know that. He saw them and his entire body went rigid. His face, already pale, turned the color of old cheese. The bailiff looked at me. I nodded. The bailiff walked over to Marcus and said quietly, "Mr. Marcus, you're going to need to come with me." Marcus started to stammer. Wait, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. I'm sorry, okay? I'll pay the money. I'll pay everything. Just please," he looked at his mother. Mom, tell them I didn't mean it. I love you. You know I love you." Eleanor looked at her son. For a long, terrible moment, she didn't say anything. Then she said, "You should have thought about that before you raised your hand to me." The bailiff took Marcus by the arm. His lawyer was on her feet, talking fast, trying to negotiate. But there was nothing to negotiate. Marcus had threatened a judge in open court. That's not a civil matter. That's a crime. And here's the twist. You didn't see coming. As the officers were leading Marcus out of the courtroom, Patricia stood up. She walked over to the bailiff and handed him a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" I asked. Patricia looked at me. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "Power of attorney," she said. "My mother signed it last week. It gives me control over all her financial accounts." I looked at the paper. Then I looked at Marcus. "Do you know what this means, Mr. Marcus?" He shook his head. He was barely breathing. "It means your mother is removing you from her will. Every penny, every asset, every investment. It's all going to Patricia and to a charity for elderly abuse victims." Marcus's knees buckled. The officers had to hold him up. "You're disinheriting me?" he whispered. "Mom? You're disinheriting me?" Eleanor didn't look at him. She looked at me. "He made his choice," she said. "Now I've made mine. And that, my friends, is how a 95-year-old woman taught her entitled son the most expensive lesson of his life." Marcus didn't just lose $47,000. He lost his mother. He lost his inheritance. He lost his freedom because the DA's office did press charges. He served 90 days in county jail for threatening a judge. And when he got out, his Mercedes was repossessed. His penthouse lease wasn't renewed. And his mother, the woman he slapped, refused to take his calls. Some lessons come cheap. This one cost Marcus everything. As for Eleanor, she moved in with Patricia. She spends her mornings tending to her garden and her afternoons playing cards with the neighbors. And every night before she goes to sleep, she looks at a framed photo of Marcus as a little boy before the entitlement, before the lies, before the violence. And she says a prayer for the son she lost, not to death, to something worse, his own choices.